Welcome to section 21.1, part 3. This is the 209th session of the CISSP exam prep series. We finished the malware family by covering the threats that go beyond the classic virus. In this session, we'll round out the malware landscape. We'll answer several questions. What is a Trojan horse? And what disguises does it wear? How is a worm different? And what have famous worms taught us? What are spyware and adware after? How does ransomware turn encryption against you? And how do malicious scripts and zero-day flaws widen the attack surface? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because these are the threats that most often reach your users directly. Imagine you defend a mid-sized law firm. A partner installs a free tool that looks helpful, a worm slips through an unpatched server, and a single click encrypts the case files. Recognizing each of these patterns lets you place the right control at the right layer before any of it happens. What is a Trojan horse? And what disguises does it wear? A Trojan looks helpful but hides a harmful payload inside. This is exactly why so many organizations forbid installing software the security team has not vetted. The disguises vary widely. Some Trojans pretend to be a game or utility while quietly hijacking your settings for ad revenue. Rogue antivirus fakes a security warning, then either steals your data or charges you to remove itself. A remote access Trojan opens a hidden backdoor that hands an attacker administrative control of your machine. And cryptomalware quietly steals your computing power to mine cryptocurrency for someone else's profit. The common thread is a friendly face wrapped around a hostile core. Where do Trojans lead once they take hold? Very often, straight into a botnet. When enough infected machines fall under one attacker, called a botmaster, they form a remote-controlled army. Picture a company whose network mysteriously crawls to a halt. Behind the scenes, dozens of its machines are quietly obeying an outsider, all hammering a single target website at once. That flood is a denial-of-service attack, and it can devour the organization's entire bandwidth. The fix is often simple: clean the infected hosts, and normal speed returns, but only if you knew to look. How is a worm different from a virus? A worm needs no human help at all. Where a virus waits for someone to click or share, a worm propagates on its own power across vulnerable systems. That self-driving spread is what makes worms so dangerous, because they can blanket the internet in hours. They carry the same destructive potential as other malware, but with the throttle wide open. Think of a fire that not only burns but lights its own next building, with nobody holding the match. What have famous worms taught us? 2 lessons stand out. The first is that patching speed is everything. One infamous worm tore through unpatched web servers, defaced their pages, and aimed a denial-of-service attack at a high-profile government site, even though a fix had been available for over a month beforehand. Prompt patching alone would have made it fizzle. The earliest major internet worm taught the second lesson, that attackers combine multiple weaknesses at once, exploiting mail flaws, weak passwords, a vulnerable utility, and trusted connections between systems in a single push. Defense in depth exists precisely because attackers rarely rely on just one door. Can a worm cause physical destruction? Yes, and one landmark case proved it. A highly sophisticated worm spread widely using several previously unknown flaws, shared drives, and infected removable media, yet it was hunting for one very specific type of industrial controller. When it found its target, it issued commands designed to physically wreck the equipment attached to that controller. If the reporting is accurate, this marked 2 firsts: a piece of code causing real physical damage to a facility, and malware used as a weapon between nations. It reframed malware from a nuisance into an instrument of warfare. What are spyware and adware after? Both interfere with how you use your machine, but for different ends. Spyware watches your activity and quietly reports it to a remote operator. It might wait for you to log into a bank, then ship your username and password straight to the attacker. Adware, by contrast, is chasing advertising money. Mild versions just push pop-ups, while nastier ones track your shopping and reroute you to competitors. Both fall under potentially unwanted programs. Software a user technically agreed to install that then does things they never wanted. Treat that fine print as a real risk, not a formality. How does ransomware turn encryption against you? Ransomware weaponizes cryptography, the very tool meant to protect you. After infecting a system the usual ways, it generates a key known only to the attacker and encrypts your critical files with it. Suddenly your own data is locked away and a demand appears: pay by a deadline or lose access forever. Some attackers add a second threat: pay or we publish your sensitive data too. This puts victims in a brutal spot, and organizations with solid, tested backups fare far better because they can rebuild instead of pay. Be aware, too, that paying can be legally fraught, since some ransomware operators fall under economic sanctions that make payment itself unlawful. The lesson is blunt: backups and prevention beat negotiation. How do malicious scripts widen the attack surface? Automation cuts both ways. The same scripting languages that let admins provision accounts in seconds let attackers automate privilege escalation, backdoors, and command and control setup the moment they land on a host. The most slippery version is fireless malware, which never writes to disk at all. A user clicks a poisoned link. A browser flaw runs code that pulls the script entirely into memory, and the payload fires without ever touching storage. Tools that only watch for suspicious files on disk see nothing, which is exactly the point. Why are zero-day flaws so hard to stop? A zero-day is a flaw attackers have found, but the defenders have not yet fixed. Two gaps keep you exposed. First is the window of vulnerability, the unavoidable delay between a threat appearing and a patch or signature being ready. Second is simple slowness, administrators who do not apply fixes promptly once they exist. Because you cannot patch what nobody has named yet, your real answer is defense in depth, many overlapping controls, so that when one misses, another still catches the attack. Think of it as several nets stacked at different heights rather than betting everything on one. So let's bring it together. A Trojan hides a hostile payload behind a helpful face, and it often drafts you into a botnet. A worm needs no human and spreads on its own, teaching us to patch fast, defend in depth, and respect that code can even cause physical harm. Spyware spies, adware cells, and both are unwanted programs you half agreed to. Ransomware encrypts your data for extortion, which is why tested backups matter so much. And scripts, fireless attacks, and 0 days remind us why overlapping controls beat any single defense. That completes the malware family. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on rucloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session.